is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind?
And when you first picked up a footy?
Yeah, I reckon I would have been as young as 3 or 4, so my parents tell me. Rugby league's been my life. It's all I've ever known. It's all I've ever wanted to do and be a part of. So, I think Mum and Dad tell me that they took me down to the local rugby league club I would have been 4 years old, and I was actually, there's a story Mum tells. She said I was too young to start playing with my older brother at that age, and I went home and cried myself to sleep in my footy boots and all my gear on, and so we have a chuckle about that. But yeah, it would have been around that time that I first started taking to the footy field.
Growing up in the Foran family, what was it like? Firstly in New Zealand before you moved over.
It's we're a very passionate household about footy. Avid All Black fans, like all Kiwis. I think you grow up in New Zealand back then, and rugby union was everything. And I often get asked, why didn't I play rugby union? But it just so happened to be that where we lived in a place called Ellerslie, we lived literally 100 metres up the road from the local rugby league club. So I think through pure convenience, it just so worked out that we enrolled in rugby league rather than rugby union. But got great memories growing up as a kid in New Zealand. Some of my fondest memories as a child is sort of getting up at all hours of the morning, 2 a.m, 3 a.m. Dad was so mad about the All Blacks that, as a household we'd get up and watch them play in the World Cup and in games all over overseas. It didn't matter what time it was, we'd all get up as a family and watch them play. So that sort of gives you an indication of how, dedicated and passionate we were, even back then as footy fans.
Yeah, and then obviously the move across. Why was it you and your family that came across to Sydney?
Yeah. So we moved over in, I think it was 1997. I think purely for Dad's work, and like most Kiwis, plan was sort of to come over and spend a couple of years in Australia, experience it, and then move back to New Zealand. But once we got over here, we just loved it. Mm-hmm. And I think Mum and Dad made the decision that, just really enjoyed the Australian lifestyle and where we were living, and it was just a family decision to stay on, and really, really, happy with it. Even back then, that was the start of my, footy journey in Australia.
Mm-hmm. When was there a moment in time that you thought, this is going to be my full-time job, or I want it to be my full-time job, I want to be a professional rugby league player?
As long as I can remember, I've been desperate to fulfil my childhood dream in playing the NRL. I used to, as a 10-year-old, I was obsessed with, past All Blacks in Carlos Spencer and Christian Cullen. These guys were my heroes, Zinzan Brook. And then, when the Warriors came into the competition, I absolutely idolised Stacey Jones and Matthew Ridge and guys like that, and Ruben Wiki. So all these great New Zealand rugby league and rugby union players, as long as I can remember back then from a child, I just wanted to be like them. And so I think I just dedicated my whole life to it. It sounds crazy, but... Yeah. I went through school not wanting to ever do anything else other than become a professional rugby league player. You could have asked me at 8 years old what I wanted to do, and I would have said that. And again, at sort of 15, 16, 17, the desire had just grown, and the hours that I was putting in and everything, I was just so determined to get there. I've never wanted to do anything else.
At that age, you said 15, 16, 17, were you always the kid that was picked in every rep side? Were you destined to play in the NRL, or did you have the ups and downs there too, where you, as you said, you really wanted it, but you might have had some ups and downs to get there?
It's a really, really good question, Cam. I think if you talk to people who know our family growing up, they'll often have a chuckle. I wasn't the most gifted person in my family by no means. My brother was more naturally talented than me with a footy ball. My sister was a handy sports girl growing up, and probably out of all three of us kids, I was probably the most uncoordinated, to put it bluntly, but probably the most driven, and I think that probably held me in good stead through those teen years. I was never the best kid in my junior teams or rep teams, never the most, I was, not the fastest, not the most skillful, but I certainly dedicated the time and effort, and it was probably around that time that I realised that hard work beats talent, when talent doesn't work hard. And I know we talk about it and it's a cliche saying, but it really stands true in my lifetime. As I say, I by no means am naturally gifted, but I think through those teen years I really proved to myself that if I worked hard, I got the results, and when I worked harder, I got more results, and I think that's what I'm still doing even today.
Looking back now, was there a moment in time though that you thought, this isn't going to happen for me? And did you fall into any dark places then, or at least thoughts that maybe you're not going to succeed at something that you've worked so hard to achieve?
Yeah, I don't recall ever being a moment where I doubted whether I could get there, but I do recall being disappointed and upset around certain conversations or certain things that have been said about me maybe at that point in my footing journey, at 16, 17, maybe the knock on me, I was playing centre back then, so, the knock on me probably from recruitment officers and NRL clubs back then was, well, will he be fast enough to play NRL as a centre, and will he be big enough? And so there's probably a part of me through that time where I had to really readjust what I was working towards, and there was truth to it. Was I going to become an NRL player as a centre? That was all I played. I'd been an outside back through my junior years. I played a bit of fullback, a bit of centre, even played a little bit of lock. I'd never played in the halves, and not many people know this, but I sort of transitioned into the halves as a 17-year-old. A year and a half before I made my debut at 18 as a first grade 5'8". So at that time, there were probably some doubts about whether I could go on and become an a great NRL player as a centre, and I had to readjust which path I was going to take, and that was moving into the halves. And I think at that point I knew, well, if I'm prepared to work hard enough and hone on my craft and dedicate my life to it, then I can make something of it.
Yeah, speaking about that, so I think it's a really good point for young people coming through, but at that time when you have said, hey, actually I think you should play it in the halves, you should be a playmaker, were you adverse to that? Were you going, nah, I'm a centre?
It was actually Dave Penner, a bloke called Dave Penner. A lot of footy fans would know of him. He was coaching Manly 20s at the time, and he deserves a lot of credit for where I've gone on to now. I don't know if I would have had the career to date if it wasn't for that decision that he made back then. So he was the coach that first came to me at Manly and said, look, I think you need to get closer to the ball, and I'm not sure whether centre's going to be your long-term position. If you want to play first grade, you're going to have to probably move into the halves, and he said, I think you can do it. And at first, I was like, no chance, mate. Can't kick, can't pass, got no vision, got no instincts for it. And he just said, look, mate, I think you do, and I think you can really grow your game there. And that was the start of that journey for me, sort of through that next 12 months and then into transitioning into the first grade squad under Desi.
I mean, if you look to young people now, is that something that you I guess, want to use that story as motivation to say, hey, look, sometimes the path isn't as clear, but also back the people around you, and sometimes it's not straight. It's a curvy way to get to where you to want to be.
Spot on, so true. I think it's a good example in the fact that, you know, if you're a young in a spot, up and coming first, you know, you want to play in the NRL, you know, these young kids coming through, and you're not having too much joy, you know, in the position that you're playing, or, you know, you're hearing, you know, doubts from, you know, recruitment officers or people around you whether you can make it in that position. You know, you control your own destiny, and at the end of the day, if you're prepared to either work really hard in that position or work really hard on other areas in your game to actually maybe find a position that more suits you better, then, you know, that's what you got to be prepared to do if that's what you want. And I think that's my journey is an example of that. And I think if you listen to people around you and you're prepared to take on that constructive criticism, then that can actually help put you in that right path that you need to go to.
You made mention, obviously, as an 18-year-old, you hit the bright lights of the NRL. What was that journey like, and I guess that moment emotionally for you? Obviously, you speak about how, well, everyone speaks about what the honour is, but talk us through that emotion of coming into the first grade side at such a young age.
Yeah, I was like a kid in a candy store, you know. I was surrounded by all my idols, really. I'd been signed at Manly as a 16-year-old, and been a junior there, you know, for that first couple of years, and then come into first grade straight out of high school. I was straight into the first grade squad and training with all these guys I'd looked up to, you know, in the past sort of 2 or 3 years. So, you know, Anthony Watt-Mao, the Stewart brothers, Matt I, Jamie Lyon, you know, Matty Ballin, the list goes on, you know, Brent Kite, Jason King, all these guys. They were just a great team, and just a sponge, really. Just wanted to soak up so much from all those guys around me, being a, you know, young kid straight out of school into that environment, and just wanted to earn their respect. That was the biggest thing. You know, I wanted to get to NRL, and I wanted the guys around me to respect the player that I was, and that was, I remember in those early years, basically what I was trying to do was just make the most of this opportunity that, you know, I'd worked hard for and been given, and I wanted to repay the faith. And you know, no one ever forgets their NRL debut. I mean, it's a very special week. It's something you've worked towards since you're a young boy, and something that you and your family can be so proud of. And it's just a week that I've never forgotten. I never will forget the emotions around it, and it was very special.
I want to go back to just something you mentioned. Obviously, your heroes are playing, and with you, you're training alongside them. You're trying to earn their respect. Yep. Do you think that you did or acted differently in a way, and not necessarily maybe put on a facade, but changed your behaviour in a way to try and earn their respect?
Look, you know, I think when I spoke about earning their respect, for me, it was about training hard and playing tough and being all that. Being all that I can to sort of show them that I belonged in that team. So, yeah, I think from that respect, it was just about earning their respect on the training park and on the footy field. And then, you know, obviously we had, you know, plenty of good times off it, and you come into that environment, and you know, you build a brotherhood, and you know, I'm still great mates with a lot of those guys, so lifelong friendships, and plenty of, I guess, great memories on and off the field.
When you came into Manly and, you know, were in the system, they were flying. 07, 08 grand finals, 11, 13, you know, obviously won 2 of them, but they were in a rich vein of form. Did that change your thinking or distort it in any way? Obviously, you're a hard trainer, but you thought, gee, as a young kid, this is all too easy. We're up the top, you know, every year. Yeah,
it was a dream run, wasn't it, really? I mean, you come into first grade as a young man, and you're making the top 4 basically year after year. You know, probably puts you in a bit of a false sense of what the journey's really about, and I think that was, you know, how my career's, you know, taken shape, is that, You know, I spent, and I'm very fortunate to have, you know, come into such an established footy team and a team that had prior success and then enjoy success with that side. But I think as a young guy, you don't really understand at that point how hard it is to be at that level, and to do that year after year. And I've certainly found that out now, having, you know, experienced the last sort of 8 or 9 years, you know, battling to actually get into the 8. So, I think, very fortunate on one hand, and also probably put me in a sense of false security of thinking that it was always going to be like that. And in fact, it's incredibly hard to be at the top of the ladder in the NRL.
Obviously on field flying, but how was your life in those periods off the field?
I think as a young man, I think I hadn't really grown up and understood who I really was. And I think I was just living life in the fast lane, if I could say that. I think, you know, on one side I was so obsessed and dedicated to playing footy each and every week. And on the other side, I really had no grasp or understanding of the decisions that I was making away from the footy field and how that would affect my life and eventually my footy and everything. And at the time, you think it's harmless. You know, you think I'm just a young man, I'm just enjoying myself. You know, I'm you know, having beers with the lads, and I'm, you know, partying all weekend, and I'm, you know, going up and sort of, you know, gambling, you know, on the weekends and through the week, and you think you're not doing anything out of the ordinary. But now I look back on it, when I look back on those years of my life, I just think, like, that was so wrong and so far out of the ordinary. That was not the lifestyle that I should have been living. But it was, and at that time, footy for me was probably masking like how chaotic my life away from rugby league was. I almost used footy as my mask. You know, if I could go out and I could play a really great game on a Friday or Saturday night, then people wouldn't ask questions about what I was doing through the week or what my lifestyle was like away from, because they would assume I just had it all together. And I think rugby league through that time became that sort of front for me. And I was a young man, and obviously, you know, you don't want to put too much pressure on yourself as a young man to have it all together and to be perfect and make all the right. I think that's unrealistic, but you know, there's certainly decisions and behaviours I could have been far better about and far more on top of that I wasn't, and eventually they were going to be, you know, sort of the undoing of me. You know, once I started to, you know, come into more of the limelight in rugby league, and then injuries, and there was just no real backboard, I guess, to sort of get me through those tough times, because I'd always relied on negative behaviours and poor decisions to distract from what was actually going on. So it was a bit of a process, Cam. You know, it was I had to really go on this journey through it all, really, to rebuild my life.
Do you think when it started to rear its ugly head, obviously you changed clubs, went to Parramatta, and that's probably when it really started? You left Manly, and then Para probably is a bigger club than Manly, so there's probably more spotlight on it. Is that, and then unfortunately you started to get injuries as well. So did it start to, as you said, as you reflect back, start to bottleneck a little bit, where that probably the two paths were starting to overlap? Spot
on. You know, 25 years old, I think it was the first time I'd really gone through a major decision in my life, in the sense that, you know, I was offered a contract to continue on at Manly and stay on and be a one-club player and sign my life away, or or move to another club where. And I remember at that time, something wasn't quite right with my head. Like I remember 2015 feeling depressed about it, and I reckon having to make that decision really weighed on me. It bogged me down. I was torn. I didn't know where I wanted to be. I'd been at Manly since I was 16, and that was all I'd known. But the fire had started to fade away with me too. It wasn't burning as bright. I wasn't excited to go to training. I remember, getting in my car and not really wanting to turn up anymore. And I thought, geez, that's not right. And I think in the end, I made a decision to leave Manly because I needed another spark. I just wasn't getting that there anymore. And, it's sad to say that, but, there was a lot of change going on at that time at Manly. The Manly that I'd been involved in for the first 7 years was changing, like all clubs do, but I wasn't coping with that change. I wasn't dealing with it. Made the decision to move to Parramatta, and sort of go and reinvent myself and go under Brad Arthur and challenge myself in a different environment. And as you said, I think not having my life together away from the field just heightened everything. And by the time I had made that decision to move to Parramatta, my life was out of control, and I just wasn't in a position to be the player or the person that I needed to be. And then you throw on the fact that I started to get injuries, and it just compounds. And there's a lot of stuff through that period of my life I regret. A lot of stuff I wish I could have done differently. And you only realise that as you learn from your mistakes and you get older and wiser and you look back. And a lot of things I wish I could have changed through that time, but that's life, eh? Like at the time you're trying to survive and trying to get through, and you might not necessarily be making the right decisions. And they were tough lessons to learn. I think I've paid the price.
At the time, which you made mention, did you realise that you were losing control a little bit, or you did, but you were naive to it and were trying to be ignorant of the fact and think, I'll wake up tomorrow and it'll all be good again?
I was obviously struggling with my mental health at that time, so I was drinking more. I was making poor decisions, around my gambling and, just what I was doing off the field. And I just thought I was surviving. Like, I just thought, I'm just trying to get through day by day here. Eventually I need to really deal with some things and get some help, but I'm just trying to survive here. And in the end, it all became too much for me.
Did you know where to get help at that stage, or did you know what to do, or were you a little bit lost with that as well?
I'd reached out. I'd reached out for the first time in 2015 when I was going through making that decision, and I'd probably felt something wasn't quite right in my head, and gone and seen the club doctor and actually started to actually see a psychologist and talk to someone about my life. At that point, I probably realised, geez, I think I am depressed. I think I'm suffering from something here, and this is not, I used to smile, I used to laugh, I used to joke. That had all been gone from me. That was gone. And I think the first time my family realised something wasn't quite right, and we'd gone for dinner sort of midway through 2015, and I just sat at the table and didn't say anything for 2 hours. We were out at dinner. I think we were celebrating someone's birthday, and I just looked blank. I just looked shut off from the world, really. And those closest to me thought, he's not what he used to be. He's really sad. So I think, I knew at that point from having conversations with those close to me that I was probably depressed. Well, I was depressed, and I needed to get help, and that was when I first sought help, and I continued on with that sort of into my move with Parramatta, and I was getting that off the field, but I needed to fall before I could pick myself back up again. That's the reality of it. And I thank those close to me every single day that I survived a suicide attempt in 2016, because at that point I didn't want to be here, and and I'd fallen so far and so hard that for me, I couldn't see my life getting any better, and I'm just thankful that I'm here every single day to actually be an example of rebuilding your life and actually righting the wrongs and fixing yourself up from rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's been a journey. It certainly hasn't been an overnight fix, and that's one thing. You know, I'm still battling it every single day. You know, I have my ups and downs, and
let's talk about the way up though. Like, so obviously you said, you know, you're at rock bottom, but let's talk about how you got yourself back up.
Yeah, well, that again, like, you're a little bit naive. You know, now I look back on it. You know, I probably thought after, you know, surviving, you know, the suicide attempt, and then, you know, going into various rehabilitation clinics and, you know, getting on medication and sort of dealing with my issues and my addictions there and then, that you know, all of a sudden I'd be fixed, and it wasn't. I wasn't fixed, and that's been a journey ever since 2016, 17. You take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and you go again, and then you come back again. So yeah, this climb back up and this journey I've been on hasn't been smooth sailing, professionally or privately, by no means, but it's moving forward, and it continues to move forward because I want that, and those around me want that for me, and I think over time you learn what you need in your life and what you don't need in your life, and that's what time teaches you, and I've learned that now, and you know, I can honestly say I'm super proud of where I sit here today, but the road back up hasn't been easy. It has not been smooth sailing. There's been plenty to deal with along the way, for sure, and I'm sure it will never stop. That's just life, but you know, I've had a lot of great people around me. You can't do it alone when you're trying to rebuild your life and you're trying to rebuild your career professionally. You need people around you, and you need strong people around you, and I've been fortunate enough to have that.
Is that part of, I guess, you went home, you got a chance in the Warriors to just kind of play footy, really? There was no real pressure on you, and I guess, is that where you talked about the people around you, you kind of had your close ones around you that you reconnected with just to help out?
When I walked away from rugby league in 2016, I was done, and those close to me know how done I was with it. It wasn't that I didn't love the game anymore, it's that I had fallen out of love with what comes with it. And I wasn't dealing with the media, you know, spotlight on me, and I've always been a pretty private guy, and I think I've struggled with that throughout my career, being in the spotlight and having to be a public figure and embrace that. I do now, but back then I really struggled with it. And look, when I decided to leave rugby league, I didn't think I'd come back. I was content with what I had done. I was fortunate enough to win a premiership in those early years at Manly, and I just thought, it's been a great career. It's been short, but I just don't want rugby league in my life anymore. I'd rather go and do something else and just be away from it all. So I think, had the Warriors not reached out, CEO at the time, Jim DeWill, who I'd known through the New Zealand Rugby League, my time playing for the Kiwis in my younger days, and he was the CEO of the Warriors, and he reached out to me, you know, by pure chance, and just said, you know, we're on the lookout for a half, and how would you feel about coming back with the Warriors to restart your career and just getting out of Sydney and away from it all, and I think, had it not been the Warriors, I'm not sure I ever come back to rugby league, and I know that's a big call, but it's my truth, and I just think I wasn't prepared to go to any other club. But the fact that at that stage of my life I could leave Sydney, I could go back to where it all started for me, I could be surrounded by people who had known me since I was a kid, had raised me, had been a part of my life, and I could go there play footy, be left alone publicly, and just reconnect with people around me that could say to me, hey, you're not living your best life. We knew you when you were young. This is the sort of, man that you need to be. And yeah, I'm extremely grateful for that opportunity to go back there. And yeah, I think it was an important year on my journey heading back up. I think, going back there and, obviously the footy component wasn't the best year. I battled quite a few injuries. My body physically wasn't quite up to where it needed to be. And, as a team, we probably didn't perform as well as we would have liked. But at the end of the day, going back and being able to reconnect with my roots and my core of who I was back in New Zealand was a pivotal part in where I am today.
Oh, like for those that are watching this, and particularly young men, did it show you that there are people in life that care about you as much as sometimes people might feel lonely and all that? There are lots of people, whether it be coaches, teachers, family, friends. I'm sure when you went home and you felt that overpouring of support.
Oh, for sure. Well, you alienate yourself when you're not making the right decisions and you're falling away and you're not being true to yourself. You alienate yourself and I think you retract because you don't want people to have to see what you really like or have to explain yourself. And I think for me, going back to New Zealand and being around so much family, extended family that like I said had known me when I was a happy young kid and had seen what I was really like, I think just getting that love and support back then from those critical family members was huge. And it certainly reopened my eyes to the work that needed to be done to rebuild my life and actually get back to being a happy young man, because I just lost all that.
Forward into a hole, count around and score for the Bulldogs.
290 NRL games in, mate, obviously had your fair share of injuries. What is it like? What's the resilience for you, and how did you build resilience? You get injured, you just go back, rehab and come back again?
Yeah, look, I think the next 3 years of that part of my career, going to Canterbury, was the making of my resilience. I think I've always battled injuries, even in my early years at Manly, but I'd always, played through injury and sort of bounced back reasonably quick. When I got to Canterbury and to the Bulldogs and I experienced some really long-term injuries, that was when I really found out who I was and how much I wanted to either keep going or walk away. And I can tell you, I had some bloody tough times at Canterbury, like really hard times, in the sense that, probably off the field I was doing all right. I was rebuilding my life. I'd met the love of my life in my wife Karina, and we were blending a family of all the kids, and I was making the right decisions and sort of rebuilding that part of my life. And I sort of thought with that, well, footy should be all right too. But it would have been the most challenging time of my career, the 3 years at Bulldogs, from a performance point of view and then also from an injury standpoint. To battle the injuries time and time again that I went through at that stage of my career was just heartbreaking. Yeah, it just tested me on so many levels. It's hard to describe it, but there were times I just broke, really, and my wife will attest to this. These times that I would just get in the car and just cry, basically. I'm a 28-year-old man, on a juicy contract at Canterbury. I should be, absolutely loving where I'm at, and I just get in the car after training and just break down, basically, on the phone to her on the way home, and just say, I don't know if I can keep going. I just don't know if I can keep doing this. I don't feel like it's ever going to get better, if it's ever going to end. Maybe I'll just walk away. Maybe, it's just the way it was meant to be for me, all this negative talk that had come out. And that's when I say, at that time, you find out who you really are, and you find out the people that are in your corner. And for me, that taught me so much about resilience, that journey. That I would have loved to have, in a perfect world, go to the Bulldogs for the 3 years, win a competition, play great footy, not get injured. That's a perfect world. But unfortunately, I went there and I just battled injury after injury, and I don't know why it happened. I don't know why I was getting these unfortunate injuries, but I was, and it just became a battle, Cam. It was just basically this constant questioning of how much do I want to come back, and how much do I want to get back to the top, and how much do I enjoy competing and playing rugby league, and what am I prepared to do and work through to get there. And I think the bottom line for me is that when it's been hard, I have just learnt that I'm better to stay in the fight and keep going than to pack up and give up and walk away, because I tried that once and I hated it. And so I think for me, as I've been on this journey through life and footy, I've just learned through each time, if you hang in the fight long enough, things will turn. That I think each time you get knocked down, you get stronger, and you get better, and then you get knocked down again, you get better, and all of a sudden you've been knocked down so many times that nothing can keep you down, because you've just been through so much and you've had to go through it all. And you just learn, I'm just going to keep going, because that's what I want to do.
It's a key takeaway for life, isn't it, really? I mean, as you've just kind of spoken about, you get knocked down so many times, but you've also got the people in your corner to help you get back up. And if people have that, which everyone does, that you can get through life.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, your family and close friends to an extent, but your family will be the people that will help you navigate your way through your challenges and what you want to get through. And if you got a core, group of family members that are going to keep you accountable, that are going to keep challenging you, that are going to keep supporting you and loving you and pushing you, then you're going to get through anything. And I know, sitting here right now, that I wouldn't be sitting here still playing rugby league, or in fact potentially still be alive if it's not for those people in my corner. They've just played such a significant role.
Obviously, you wanting to be a big advocate for this has a lot to do with the passing of your stepson Logan. Obviously, can you talk us through, that part of your life? You're on the highest of highs, having thrashed the Aussies over in New Zealand, and then was on holiday with Karina, and then obviously got a phone call that no one wants to get.
Yeah, the hardest thing I've ever had to go through in my life, I've just spoken about my own journey and challenges, but nothing will compare to what we experienced last November. And as you said, I'd just finished, competing with the Kiwis, and had Karina fly over and watch me in that final game, and then we had planned a trip away with my family to Melbourne and for a few days to celebrate. And it was, that's a morning I'll never forget. It'll stay with me forever. It scarred me. It's changed our life. It's none more than Karina's. And obviously all of his siblings and his father and his grandparents and all of those. It's just a moment that you never think you'll live through. You just don't think you'll. We just never ever thought that we would get to that point with any of the kids. And I think it has opened our eyes to just how precious life is, and how it can be taken from you in such an instance. And I think we're all dealing with it in our own way, and all in different ways, and reflecting in our own sort of time and journeys. But you talk about mental health and you know, this is what this week's about, and bringing awareness to it. And I think for our family now, particularly Karina and her parents and Logan's father, is about making sure that we can help in some way eliminate or bring awareness so that another family doesn't have to go through what we've all had to go through. And I think it's just changed our lives forever. It's changed our lives. We'll all never be the same. You never think you're going to live through something like that. And then, you know, Logan had the world ahead of him. You know, he just celebrated his 20th birthday, you know, at our house, and sitting down having a cake with him on October the 1st, you know. And by the start of November, he was gone. It just shows you how quickly someone's life can change and be taken. And you just never know what someone's going through or what they have been going through. We have to create conversation so that men, and young males in particular, feel okay about expressing what they're going through and what's going on in their mind.
I guess looking at your career full circle from that starting point, what I take away is that it's when you're even in the highest of highs, mental health and your mental well-being is still important, and you should still be checking in on yourself during that time, and teaching yourself, speaking about the good times, because when it does come to those challenges in life, it makes that conversation a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, for me, your mental health as an individual is the most important piece to life. It's not your career. It's not how much money you're earning. It's not how many friends you got. It's not how much fame you got. Any of that bull crap. I think at the end of the day, the most important thing, and the message that we need to get across to young adolescents growing up, is that how you feel inside is the most important thing, and what's going on in your head is the most important thing daily. And I just can't help but think that young males in particular feel the pressures and stresses of life as they leave school and they go into that next transition into their working life, that they're just not doing enough. They're not enough inside, and we need to change that narrative. We need to change that view that, you know, people need to be achieving and succeeding to feel good about themselves. You know, it's okay to just take your time through life, and it's okay to get it wrong. It's okay to make poor decisions. It's okay, you're young. We don't need perfection at that age. You know, we don't need to have it all together. How do we get young kids and young adolescents feeling happy and content and good inside without feeling the pressures? And then when they do feel the pressures of life, how do they have positive behaviours and have positive things that they can turn to that can actually release that pressure rather than negative things? And that's the message I want to get across, and that's the work I want to do in the community to help people that and help these young men, is that have positive things in your life you can turn to. And I've only really just started to learn that. Yeah. You know, I go and play golf. I go for a surf. Yeah, I still get stressed. Yeah, I still have really, really bad moments in our life, but I don't turn to those behaviours. I go and do something else that I know is not going to compound it. And I think that the younger and the earlier that these young adolescents can learn that, then the better off their life's going to be in the long run.
I guess obviously yourself, Karina, her family, shown plenty of courage, incredible strength and courage with the formation of Logan's legacy and the relationship for Top Blokes. And I want to ask you, I guess, finally, what do you think some of the strategies that you have used, and not necessarily even in your early stages of the career, but now, that you feel has helped you increase your mental health, your mental literacy, which I know that you're continually working on even to this day?
Like, really proud of what we've been able to do with Top Blokes and the work that they're putting into Logan's legacy. You know, it's really important for the family. Like I was saying earlier, that we're able to make a change and make a difference now. And Karina's parents, Chris and Karen, have been amazing in that space around, really pushing for this to happen. And, Karina's the strongest human I've ever known, and her strength to want to make a difference, despite what she's living through has just been incredible. And, it's important to us that, along with Top Blokes, that we can use Logan's story to prevent any other young man from feeling the way Logan was and making that catastrophic decision and that fatal decision that he made on that night, and families, and the collateral that's left behind. So we're really, really pushing and driving to make a change there. My message through it all is around prioritising your mental health, and I think for me, like I was saying, it's a daily battle. It's a weekly battle. But one thing I do differently now to what I did in my younger days is I'm in control of my decisions. It's not unusual to see me get up and go for a walk. Drives my wife nuts. But I'll often, on days off, say, let's just get up and go for a walk. For me, getting up, I love getting up at the crack of dawn, 5 a.m. and making a coffee for me and her and throwing the joggers on and just walking. I'll go for a 5 or 6K walk, most mornings, just to breathe in the fresh air, see the sun, see the water. And for me, that's my antidepressant, that's my medication, that's the start of my day, and that can just be a talking process, that can just be me and her walking hand in hand, just giving gratitude for what we've got in life, and if there's anything that we've sort of gone to bed with the night before or anything that's weighing us down, that's our time to talk about it. And then it's just about breaking the day up, really, for us. Then we'll go on, into our working days, and I'll come to training. For me, training is another antidepressant for me. When I'm training, my heart rate's going and I feel good about myself. I'm improving, I'm getting better as an athlete, as a man. I'm making a right decision to stay healthy, and so training for me is again that endorphin. It releases that good feeling for me, and then where it used to spiral for me in the evenings, where I would start to overthink and get down about certain things, because that becomes my deep thinking time, often at night time, and where in the past I would go in the afternoons to the pub and have a beer, and one beer would turn into 10 beers, and 10 beers would then turn into gambling, and the compound of that no longer happens in my life anymore. So I have structure around my afternoons. So, finishing my day's training, I know what I'm going to do in the afternoon. I know how I'm going to fill that block of time up, that next 3 to 4 hours until dinner time. Whether that's, going to a recovery centre and sitting in a sauna and doing ice baths, or it might be going for another walk. It might be going and catching up with someone for a coffee. So there's routine around that structure in my day, and then I'm in bed at 8:30 at night. I'm trying to exhaust myself through the day, both mentally and physically, so that I can then crash at night and have a good night's sleep. Sleep's important. I always try and get my 8 hours of sleep every night, and that's the routine and the process, and I repeat that every single day. And we still enjoy ourselves. We're human. We'd like to go and have nice meals and have a nice feed together, and that's how to spend time with the kids and support all our kids, and that makes us feel good about life, being parents and being devoted there. But it's just around having structure in your life, and I think that once you work that out and you put positive behaviours instead of those negative behaviours in those parts of the day, then you can start to make real change. Your mental health's certainly going to be in a far better place.
Cool. Well, Foz, thank you very much for sharing, mate.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.